Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Black Mirror Season 3, Episode 6. It's the final episode of the third season. It's called Hated in the Nation. Full spoilers for the episode will follow. So this was a long one. This was the longest episode of the season. This was 90 minutes. This was a movie, essentially.
Yeah, it was, and it justified its time, I think.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was wasting time or padding things out. The story. It's funny though that the final episode and the longest episode, at times, kind of turned into a pardon the pun. I don't mean to do this. I really don't mean to do this.
I know where you go with this.
It turned
Oh,
into a B movie. I'm
yes.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
As soon as I knew where you were going. It's just, oh,
I'm
God.
so sorry. But when we get to the point where this swarm of robot bees is coming at people and they're running away screaming and they're trying to like clog the cracks in the door to stop them getting in, all I can think is cheesy B movie from like the 70s or 80s. You know.
I totally get that, and I
Yeah.
was feeling that too, but it worked. So
Oh no, it was entertaining. It was, and I liked the episode, but I liked it in a way that I didn't like any of the other ones.
it was very different.
It was entertaining. The metaphors, the message was a lot more on the surface. Yeah, I don't think it takes much analysis to really get to the
Yeah,
core of it.
that's the thing. I mean, we said the same sort of thing about episode five, but we used it there as a criticism where the it was so
Well,
surface level. Whereas here, I feel like it just works.
well, yeah, do you know what I think it is? I don't think the problem with Five was necessarily that the message was surface level, because I think the message was very surface level in episode one, say.
Yeah,
But I think the problem was is that the story underneath the message wasn't entertaining enough to, make it interesting.
yeah, we
Whereas,
said that a few times in the first couple of seasons.
yeah, whereas here, Elsa, do you know what I want to applaud them for? Do you know what occurred to me as we started this episode and we realised that our main character is a detective? Is that this is the first time I'm pretty, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first episode of Black Mirror where the main character is a police officer.
I think so.
That is actually really impressive. Think about that.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to. It almost feels like pardon the pun, a cop out. You've got me started now.
I
But
can't believe you just made that pun.
look at I'm sorry.
Yeah. Also, actually, I liked how they introduced her because they didn't. We didn't even know she was a cop until she arrived at the crime scene.
Yes.
I like that we introduced her through a normal human thing that everyone can kind of relate to. It was she comes home with some healthy food. She looks at it. She's about to put it away and maybe prepare something for dinner. And she goes, "No, I'm having Pringles." And she might have even said it like that because she's Scottish.
Yeah.
Although she had a very different accent from mine. In fact, see if I'm going to make one complaint, is that I actually did find her voice a little bit distracting at times.
Oh, why is that?
She ha she has a very high sort of pitched Scottish accent kind of thing going on, and maybe it's just me because I'm from Scotland and I know Scottish accents, but it sounds very soap opera to me, that voice.
Yeah, I get that.
I know it's a weird thing to say, and it's even weirder coming from me, but maybe that's why. Maybe it's being Scottish and hearing that accent on a TV show is kind of like, wow. Because it's not like I watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and go, oh, Fitzy's voice is troubling me. I can't hear a Scottish accent. This is weird. No, I'm fine with it. Desmond on Lost, the other characters. But I found her voice a little bit distracting at times.
What I just learned is there's too many Scots on TV.
There's not enough.
Well,
There's a nice amount. Could be more. Could be more.
you know what? There's definitely not enough of gingers.
I would
Need more.
never would have said that in a million years. Never.
Uh,
Ah, dear. Also, it amused me that there was a famous show from the UK, which was actually remade in the US as well, called Broadchurch. Although it wasn't called Broadchurch in the US, but it was David Tennant, and I laughed because that was also a show set in England where the main cop was a Scottish cop, and it just amused me that this was again a kind of thing where
yeah.
she's the only one, and it's just like, just set in Scotland, go on. um,
They couldn't dare. They could. As like an American production company, you're going to an international audience through Netflix. Would you dare make everyone Scottish?
Hey, but here's the thing: Netflix always has subtitles as an option. You can turn them on.
Sure, but
You don't get that with us. If you don't understand me and you're
that's tough. Yeah.
you
I
have
mean,
to just
you
learn.
can try YouTube's automatic captions, but yeesh.
Yeah. So, sometimes they go on, sometimes they don't. I think I have to check the settings. Would we rather they were always an option, or would we just take them away because they're utter bollocks and they always get what we say wrong?
I say leave them. There's got to be some fun in them at some point. Sometimes they're going to get something wrong, and it's going to be an amusing sentence.
Yeah.
And eventually, someone will spot it and tell us, and it will be fantastic.
Sure, sure. I wonder how it handles the word ginger in the context that we usually throw it around.
Well, I mean, someone can just rewind this about a minute, have a look at the subtitles, see how it went.
But yeah, I mean, I think Kelly MacDonald's fine as an actress. It's just, it's when she's overly. See, when she's just talking to other characters, it's fine. But when she's overly like describing something, is when it kind of bothers me a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
get it.
Whatever. But yeah, we start with a framing device, set some amount of time, months, I think, in the future, where she's at a hearing in court or some kind of. I don't know if it's exactly court. It may just be I'm forgetting the word for them here, but let's just go call it court. But she's at a hearing, giving her account of everything that happened, and we cut back. And honestly, if I do have another complaint, I suppose, and I'm getting my complaints out of the way here, is I don't really see the point in the framing device.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. It kind of ultimately feels irrelevant because
Especially since after this first scene, it's actually 60 minutes into the episode before you see another bit of it, and then you see it once again at the end.
and it has no resolution. There's no verdict. There's no closure. It's just
Yeah, because she's not like on trial or she's not even like it's not. That's why I'm saying it's not like it might be in a court, but it's not like a trial of something. It's just her going and speaking to the panel of
yeah. It feels like the whole framing device was only there so we could have the very final scene, like after the courtroom.
But you could have just had like.
But yeah, but you could have just. But why couldn't you just cut forward to that?
Yeah, you could have just had a court. The court scene essentially play out in a similar way, just like sort of like, montage through it or whatever. Whatever you wanted to do, and then have your ending. But hey, so yeah, it's a detective story, and it plays out kind of normal at first. As a dead body, and there's a lot of right away the social issues that are getting brought up. It's someone's outraged the internet. In this first case, it's a woman who wrote an article about someone who was like a martyr who was in a wheelchair for disabled causes.
Very specific rip on a person. That one. I don't know if you caught it.
Oh god!
I'm 90% certain that was supposed to be about Katie Hopkins.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I believe she did a very similar piece about the Kate Price's kid. The disabled one.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's what that was meant to be there.
Actually, just for the Americans, obviously, a lot of Americans watching this review and watching the show. Katie Hopkins is basically just this awful person who, for some reason, gets on TV to give us her awful, awful opinions. To put it in perspective, she would essentially be Trump's right-hand man.
Pretty much.
And says awful things like, I wouldn't want my kids hanging out with another kid who if their name is something.
Yeah.
She says ridiculous things like that. She's an awful...
Yeah, and she has a lot of tabloid pieces that she writes. And this was one of those that she did.
Everyone hates her. They hate her. She is more... The character in this, writing this article, is more sympathetic than Katie Hopkins.
Yeah, but I think she is very clearly the inspiration for this opening character.
Sure, I can see it. But yeah, and she turns up dead, and the husband gives this story of how she slit her own throat with the wine bottle. Now, of course, the detective's Karen. She's Like, well, it's usually the husband or someone she knows, and yeah, likely story, yeah, she did it to herself. Um, but of course, not only do they find one of these robot bees in her head, which by the way, the robot bees aren't just like some mad scientist ploy to start killing people. The robot bees are actually something that's government funded to because all the real bees are all dying out, so they're doing it to make sure that the pollen and the ecosystem all keeps going.
And I think that's, it's not very sci-fi-ish, this episode, weirdly. Like, that's the kind of the only thing.
Well,
A couple of little bits.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but once there was a swarm of robot bees flying towards people.
Sure, but what I mean is, most of the world, like, it's not that advanced.
Yeah,
it's only
yeah,
like
it's...
10, like maybe 10. Like, if you look at the cars, for example,
Yeah, because we're
they're
testing.
slightly sleeker,
Yeah.
they're slightly nicer.
We're testing automated cars just now. Whereas here, and they're still not public used by the sounds of it, because Blue mentions that she's just waiting for them to become standard.
Do you know what? There was a nice news story today about driverless cars where I think it was Uber used their first one to deliver 50,000 cans of beer. He's the first lorry did a lorry delivery as a driverless thing. That was their first test run. You know what? Let's do 50,000 Budweisers.
All the poor delivery drivers are all going to
Yeah,
lose their job.
Pretty much.
Poor bastards. One note on Blue. I kept thinking she looked like a British Amy Poehler. Maybe it's just my imagination. I think it was the hair. It was the hair more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen her in Game of Thrones the last
have
year
you?
or
Yeah,
two.
okay.
Yeah, she was the waif in that, so I didn't have the issue. It means nothing to you because you don't watch it.
The waif. Yeah, the waif.
To anyone who watches Game of Thrones, that means something. They
Well,
know who that is.
Yeah, it's someone saying wife, but they've got a speech impediment.
Look, fairly reasonably major character in the last couple of seasons. Anyone who watches it knows that. Let's just move on. This is your fault.
My waif is the love of my life.
You can't place that into an accent. It can't be done. No, it doesn't work.
Alright, so they investigate the murder, Robot Bee, in her head, and that's what she was, when the husband's recounting the story, says that she said, get it out of me, and that's what she was talking about. Bee goes into the pain centre of the brain, causes excruciating agony. But then it happens again, and it's a rapper who, it's one of these like TV things where they show him a YouTube video of a kid dancing and try to like be like him, and the kid's backstage getting ready to come out, one of these surprise things. But before he can do it, the rapper just talks about how awful he is and how he should just quit life now, and various other awful things, including swearing, which seemed weird for a TV show that was this kind, but whatever. And, again, he gets nothing but hate on the internet, just like the women before her, or before him.
It's clearly very quickly playing into the idea of social mob justice.
It is, yeah. Social mob justice. Also the idea that, and obviously, I mean, again, this is why it doesn't really take that much analysis, because as we get further in the episode, the actual plan of the person doing this is basically spelling out what the whole thing is. And that's just that, people use these hashtags, they're awful to people, and even the teacher who they go and see who sent the cake with the hate message on it, she's like, oh, it was just a joke, it was a hashtag game, and, whereas this is like, this can have ramifications, this is,
I think it's very intentional that this message is so blatantly spelled out, because I think this is, out of everything Black Mirror has done, this is maybe the one where this is the most currently relevant. It's not something that we should be aware of happening, like we should be careful in case we kind of get to this stage. This is like, no, this happens every day on the internet.
Yeah, it's basically already there, and it is awful when it does happen.
Yeah.
Hell, it occasionally happens in our comments.
It does. I mean, there was a news story just last week where one of these online groups that hunts pedophiles, they set out up that sort of thing, where they spread a name, said, oh, this guy is one of them, and
Wrong.
He wasn't. And this guy had months of abuse and his life ruined, and that's what this is essentially.
Yeah, if you ever want to learn the issue of false accusation and something like that, go watch The Hunt. It is a Danish film, stars Mads Mikkelsen, of Hannibal fame, and he's in Doctor Strange, which is out now, and it is a stomach-churning film about a man wrongly accused of being a paedophile, and it is... You will you will think twice before throwing around accusations after that, and just because
Yeah.
because the stuff like that, of course, once you're accused, you're guilty in the eyes of everyone, even if you're proven unguilty. They're always going to look at you just a little bit funny.
Yeah. And no, I just brought it in like there was a news
Yeah.
story just the other day. I happened to read that.
But yeah, so as we keep going, but this is the thing: is this fairly relevant, fairly serious, topic that's anyone who uses the internet sees all this kind of thing going on, and you kind of avoid it, or maybe you're part of it. In which case, maybe stop. But then we get to killer robot bees.
And I'm like, I'm kind of down for this.
I was too, oddly enough, but it does kind of put it in this weird place where it's like, oh, this is fun and entertaining, and the message is fine. But the message, it's a good message, it's a good lesson to learn, but it does make it less cerebral and less impactful, I think, than some of the better episodes this season.
Perhaps.
That would be my take on it.
I think the thing is, like you say, it's very enjoyable. It's easy to watch, but it's also easy to digest the message. But does that make the message less? Does it have less impact on less lasting impact on people because of that?
I think it does.
I'm not sure.
I genuinely think it does. I think you finish certain other episodes, or you finish a certain movie, say that hits you emotionally and feels cerebral. Cerebral's a very important word that I keep using because I feel like when it feels like it is that real and it feels like it hits you, I think you remember it. You feel like maybe you not learned something because obviously that's wrong before you watch it or whatever the message happens to be, but it
reinforces it.
It reinforces it, and it places it so deeply into you, and that sounds like a sexual metaphor now. That you don't take it lightly. Whereas I'm not saying this treats it lightly, but I feel like you could forget this episode. Almost, I guess is what I'm saying. And I did enjoy it. Like, I think it's good. I think it was better than episode 5.
Easily.
I had fun.
I don't know. I feel like just not to jump ahead too much, but like the big climax. I feel like that hits hard, and it kind of goes that there are consequences. I feel like even though it was fun, once we get to this moment, it kind of reinforces the.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning actually. This is the second episode in a row where genocide essentially happens. Because basically it turns out that there's a hashtag that's being used. I'm forgetting.
Hashtag death2.
Death2, that was it. Death2, and then the person's name and a picture of them. And so the idea is that before 5 o'clock each day, whoever's got the most hashtags of that will be the target that night. So we get a third kill, and they try and save this girl. It's this girl who posed mockingly as if she was peeing on a war memorial, and she got a lot of hate on the internet. And at this point, the public don't know that people are dying because of this.
Because they only know the first woman, the journalist, died,
but not why.
Not why, but they don't know that the second guy died. That's not public knowledge yet.
Yeah. So they'll try to save her, and this is where we get the scene of the swarm of bees. We get them clogging the door with clothes and stuff, trying to stop the bees getting in, and it happens anyway. And the girl dies, and they do more digging. They find a giant list of names, and it's everyone who used the hashtag. And this made sense because the motive they actually end up giving is they find this girl who used to work at the company where the bees came from, and she tried to commit suicide because she said something about someone who turned out to have learning disabilities, and she got a lot of online hate for it, and it led to her trying to commit suicide. And it was her flatmate, who she suspected had feelings for her, found her and saved her. And this is the guy who turns out to be the guy behind it all. And and I'm glad this kind of happened where he was trying to target everyone else, because I felt like that should be his real targets.
Yeah, I did really like that moment as well, because it kind of played on the idea that, even though she did something wrong and maybe deserves to feel guilty about doing something wrong, what you get on the internet has, lasting effects on that person, maybe far worse than what they deserve.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really fine line is to say, what is the right level of... you see a picture of someone doing something clearly disrespectful or even worse than that, I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago there was a woman took a photo in a changing room of a gym.
Yeah, and it had it was like a porn star or something, wasn't it? And it had someone else in it, and she was
I don't know.
criticizing them.
I don't know if it was a porn star, but you may be right.
She was a model or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think she was a model. I don't think she was a porn star. If she was a
I
model,
can't
yeah,
remember.
she was a model because her modeling agency dropped her.
I knew it was something along those lines.
But she took a sort of selfie with someone else in the background getting changed, like naked, and was basically mocking her for being overweight.
And this was in a gym as well.
And this was in a gym. Yeah, she's there to try and do something about it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And not to bring this up to talk about the actual thing, but just to, like, yeah, obviously you see that, you think this is disgusting. Like, what is wrong with you? And there's like a line, there's like normal discussion to have with other people about it online, and then there's going to her actual, like, Facebook page or her Instagram or whatever, because it was Instagram it get posted on. Like, you know, is it okay to say to her, well, that is completely disrespectful, like, or
Well, see, that's the thing. I think even that's okay. It's okay to shame them so they realize, but it's the point where it gets to physical death threats and, actual abuse,
Yeah.
where you're just becoming what she was.
yeah, yeah,
Because at that point, you're no better than her. Yes, she did something wrong, but was it enough to deserve a death threat? Probably not.
in most cases. I mean, there's probably
I mean, there probably is the odd one that maybe does deserve it. But then again,
very,
who are we
very
to
rarely.
who are we to decide without a court of law? Isn't that what our entire justice systems are based on?
Yeah, I think obviously one discussion that comes from that is I think there has to be some kind of online policing, not in the sense of like an actual online police force, but I just mean there has to be ramifications for people who do certain things. Like, you constantly hear stories of women who get like abuse online, either stalking or threats, and the police basically say, well, it's digital.
I know recently in the UK, the laws have changed a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and someone did get prosecuted earlier this year.
They're kind of shifting in certain places, but it's slow and it's not.
Yeah, it's not dramatic. It's clearly not quick enough. The law is behind the technology.
Yeah, it really is. So that's a conversation. I mean, so the episode's getting us talking. I mean, that's something.
Yeah, and that's clearly what its aim is.
Yeah. So in that sense, it works. I think in terms of an emotional punch of like caring about the characters in this. Like, I don't think I necessarily cared about the characters in this.
No, and interesting. I think that's to do with them being police and detectives. I feel like that's often in these sorts of stories, you don't typically connect to the investigators. You're supposed to connect to the victims, but in this, all the victims are kind of awful people.
That is true. They are all awful people.
Like, that's kind of the point. Like, both sets of victims are being awful. So it's like, who do you actually connect to?
Yeah. Although the people making the hashtags are less awful than.
They're less awful, but it's like you can't. You also
Sure,
you're supposed to not
sure.
connect with them for doing something like this, in the context of the episode.
Yeah. But yeah, so we find out that they never actually outright say it, but you get from the way they're talking that that on this day, like, all 300 and something thousand people died. Like,
Yeah,
they
because
were all
they
killed.
walk into that room and there's just dead bodies.
Yeah.
They're all in the
Yeah.
body bags. It goes on for God knows how
Yeah.
long.
You see like tons of them, but even in the hearing, just the way they talk about it on that day, they're talking about it as if it's 9/11 almost. Like,
Yeah, the implication is clearly that every single one of those targeted did die.
yeah. So I'm curious about your thoughts on the ending, because they presume that Blue has killed herself because they found a note and they found her clothes and stuff by the ocean.
Yeah.
And we find out that in fact she is tracking the man behind all this in whatever country he's in. It looked maybe Latin America, maybe Spain, something like that.
Yeah, this was super James Bond.
It was super strange, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of the ending, because it ends with her sort of stalking him through the streets, and then the camera sort of comes up to a nice big sort of high shot, and we just see him go past the building. We don't see him anymore. She walks past the building. We don't see her anymore. And it cuts to credits. Like we don't know what the outcome is. I don't know.
I think the way she says we've got him, I've got him.
Yeah.
Does she mean she's killing him, or does it mean that she's gonna arrest him? Because you'd think by killing him, she's committing the same problem as what's kind of caused all of this in the first place by taking it into her own hands.
I don't know if I buy that she wants to kill him.
That's what I mean, because if she kills him, she's literally becoming what the entire problem was, just in person instead of online.
I don't know if it's maybe just saying that, like, if you do something like this, or if you do anything online, including him doing this, because this was all online. It was, he was on the internet doing this. I think, and she was originally a forensic computer specialist. She was a hacker, essentially, who'd hacked for the police and get into things and whatnot. And I don't know if this is, like, almost the physical embodiment of her just doing that more. Like this is, because when we first meet her and she talks to Karen about what she does and why she's changed careers, she hacked into some, like, child murderer or child abuser's computer, seen all the photos and videos that he took of the incident.
It's a child murderer, yeah.
Yeah, and she said, well, I just felt like out in the field I can actually maybe stop things from happening. Like, she felt like she was just sort of behind a wall and, and I wonder if this ending is her, like, she's still tracking someone who did something on her computer. She's still doing a hacky thing almost, but in physical form by actually following him. You probably using things like signals on his phone and other things to actually find him, and and I don't know if it's just a simple case of you can always be traced, you can always be found.
Yeah, I think it's essentially the message is no matter what you do online, there are real world consequences.
Yeah, and for him that's like he's always going to be followed. Even if she doesn't catch him, there'll always be someone else. And I think
she'll always be trying. He'll always have to live with, like, in hiding, essentially.
Yeah, just like if you, for some reason, do something like take a photo next to a war memorial and be disrespectful, or like the model who was body shaming someone at a gym, like that's always going to be kind of on your record. It's always going to be something people know you for, and many people will just kind of shun you for it. In this case, it's more extreme because he's murdered hundreds of thousands of people, but that's always going to live with him, and maybe that's why we don't get to see him get caught, because it's not the point that he's going to get caught or not, it's the point that it's always going to be there. I don't know, maybe I'm completely good off on that.
No, I buy all that. I kind of almost didn't like them just because it did feel like really James Bond. Like, it was the way the music came back. It felt like the end of a Bond film.
Yeah, I will say I really liked the music in the scene where the bees are all coming at the house to kill the girl. It was really like sort of like high stringed horror sort of.
Yeah, lots of drones and
that was cool. Good. But on the ending, I don't even necessarily have a problem with it specifically feeling James Bondy. It's just that it feels so out of place compared to the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the wraparound, both the ending and the courtroom stuff felt a bit off.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, at least I get the point of the actual ending, though. It's the courtroom stuff I don't understand why it was there, like, at all. I don't get its purpose other than to have a framing narrative.
Yeah, because I guess just looking again at the ending and try to decipher what it means, it's almost like, to compare it to some other things, it's like people who have committed DDoS attacks, like, on the game consoles at Christmas, like, last year.
Or more recently, the one that attacked the entire internet infrastructure with, like, Reddit, Twitter, all that stuff that last Friday.
Yeah, but no, I'm going with the game console one because someone got caught. Someone was arrested.
Yes.
Like, as well as 6 months, a year later. I can't remember how long it was, but it was, like, a good chunk of time later. It's like, oh no, we caught one of these people who was involved in this. And it was like, oh right, so they were tracking them and they could be found. And they were found. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
Also, inquiry. That's what it was. It was an inquiry into the situation.
That's the word.
It just popped into my head. I was like, oh, that's what it was.
There's the word I couldn't think of earlier. I mean, you're only 20 minutes late, but
I know, and I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just like, oh, there's an inquiry, and it was just like, oh yes, I've got to put that out there.
I kept
We
saying
got, we got there in the end.
I kept saying hearing, but yeah, inquiry is the word.
Oh, there we go.
Oof. Yeah, because that was the thing. Because see, when it started, I thought, is she maybe in trouble? Will she do something questionable, even if it's for a good reason, and that's why she's having this thing? But no, it was literally it ended, and they thanked her for her service, and she got up and left. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it feels like maybe that was the point. It was there to make you question whether or not she'd do something, but it went so long without showing me the room with her in it that I forgot.
Yeah, and also I don't even think even in the main story that there's ever even a hint of that. Oh, she might go rogue and renegade to try and catch him or
Yeah,
something. Like it always felt like she was by the book. It never felt like she deviated or did anything else.
yeah, even like the way she was talking about, the cake at the start. It's like, well, we go investigate. It's probably gonna be a dead end, but that's our job. We'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
It was all really methodical, and yeah, might be pointless, but
But
it's,
again, I mean, for us it had a point because it gave us that context of that normal person, this teacher who teaches kids, being like, "Oh, it was just a hashtag game." It gives us that perspective. That's what the point of the scene was. But
also it gave me the idea that I love that everyone just eats the cake.
yeah, all the crime guys eat the cake.
Just like even the journalist at first, her husband was like, "What? Don't eat the cake." She's like, "It's a cake. That's its point. Of course I'm going to eat it." And then the crown guys are like, "Oh, cheers for the cake. Tasted good." So
Oh,
that's the real moral of this episode. Don't waste good cake.
it's just fortunate it was far away enough from her slitting her throat that the blood didn't get on it.
Exactly. Otherwise, at that point you can throw it out because it's no longer good cake. But
Yeah, it's tainted. It's been compromised.
yeah,
Compromised cake. Is that what
exactly.
you want? Well, I believe that we have reached an end of this discussion, and it has been beyond fantastic working our way through the season. Now, we are actually going to do one more small video on season 3 of Black Mirror, which is going to be a spoiler free kind of picking our favourite episodes, just talking about the season as a whole, and giving a general sort of idea of how we felt about everything. Which it'll be shorter. It won't be too long, and it'll be for people who have not watched it yet and want a sense of what's worth watching, and just a sense of after we've had some thought, like what's our favorite episode. So if you are hoping for that for the end of this one, if you've been watching all the reviews, there's one more coming with that little tidbit in it. Because I feel like what part of the reason for this is we feel like someone might not have watched the other 5.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk about people watching them out of order, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to talk about the others in this
So
episode just because we assume people have watched them in this order.
yeah, so look forward to that. But otherwise, guys, that is episode 6 of Black Mirror. Obviously season 4 will be coming sometime next year. We will be covering it, of course. But thank you very much for sticking around, like and subscribe and all that stuff because it does help us out quite a bit. Thanks very much for watching, and yeah, we'll see you next time.